A very good morning and welcome all of you to the daily news analysis with me, Jatin Verma, for 19th of February 2025. So, in today's news analysis, we are going to see these news articles. First thing first, you'll see the first page. Just allow me a minute. So, we are going to talk about India-Qatar relationships in the light of Qatari Amir visiting India and meeting the Prime Minister. So, we are elevating our ties to the strategic partnership level, right? So, what do we mean by strategic partnership? Where all the challenges facing both the countries will be taken care of, not just the investment part, not just the Indian diaspora part, but the freedom of navigation, all these issues. The two economies will be strategically, the two nations will be strategically intertwined in the manner that they look at the issues like India, Israel Palestine dispute in a holistic manner as to how that issue or any issue of climate change of that nature is going to affect the two countries. So this is the lead news article of the day. We are going to see the holistic coverage of it. Now, what is it feeding into overall? We are gradually signing these type of agreements with all the Gulf countries so as to lead to India GCC FTA, right? India Gulf Cooperation Council FTA, free trade agreement. In the yesterday's news article, I had asked you what is the meaning of when was the Gulf Cooperation Council set up? Where is its headquarter? So Gulf Cooperation Council was set up in the year. Anyone can mention in the comment section. And where is it headquarters? Okay, Qatar was embroiled in a controversy. We are going to talk about that also. It was ousted from the Gulf Cooperation Council in the year 2017 because of developing close ties with Iran, right? So we are going to talk about that angle also. Apart from that, the other news articles are the misapplication or the unpredictable application of rarest of the rare doctrines. In many of the previous news articles, news analysis, I have explained you as to how the Supreme Court decides whether the death penalty is to be given to a convict or whether it should be reduced to life imprisonment on the basis of the gravity of the offense. Rarest of the rare doctrine decides whether the convict would be given the death penalty or he would be given the lenient punishment. But this rarest of the rare doctrine has been applied in a whimsical manner. This is what this article says, taking into account the recent death penalty cases in the Supreme Court. Okay, so we have in the previous news article on this issue, we had seen that a kind of moratorium is being observed by the Supreme Court. Supreme Court is itself not giving the death penalties, even though death penalty remains on the Indian law books. In the Bharatiya Nyaya Suraksha Sanhita also, we have retained it. But we are not giving, our Indian judicial system is not giving the death penalty. More on this in the relevant news section. Then the other news articles, Allahabadiya condition, Supreme Court's gag order. Supreme Court has imposed, see, this is a sensitive, emotive issue. People are divided, okay. So we are going to see from the UPSC's perspective as to what is in this news clipping for our purpose. Okay, what does section 483 deal with? All those sections 438 which grant bail, all those things which we are going to talk about. Supreme Court mentioned in this case that if we impose a heavy penalty or a sum bail bond to be deposited by Allahabadiya, then that would amount to selling bail to the rich people. Okay, so it was being considered on what conditions can we give bail to such people. This was the matter, one of the matters in the Supreme Court yesterday in this Ranveer Allahabadiya case. So the Supreme Court said that if we impose a heavy fine, let's say deposit 1 crore rupees and then you have to appear at periodic intervals, that will be like only the rich can go scot free and the poor people have to languish in the jails, right? So that will be like selling bails, even though the lawyer, the advocate hired by Ranveer Allahabadiya is none other than the former CJI's son. Okay, D.Y. Chandrachud's son. But that did not seem to be having any impact on the Supreme Court, even though we have the phenomena of uncle judges. I have mentioned in our news analysis that the predecessor judge, his son or his daughter would be practicing in the court in front of the same judges who used to sit beside the judge. D.Y. Chandrachud used to be the colleague of the judges who are hearing the case in which his own son, D.Y. Chandrachud's son, is hired as a lawyer. So is there a conflict of interest? Prima facie seems to be no, but bail has been granted on some conditions which don't seem to be lenient. So this is one of the cases. Now here another related article related to criminal jurisprudence. Supreme Court says the states must give the reprieve or remission to the eligible cases. For example, if a person is convicted but he is not applying for the remission of sentence. You understand what is the remission of sentence? The leniency granted by the court, okay, by the governor, clemency petition, etc. That means the pardoning power of the governor, article 161. There are some people who are not that literate or aware about this provision of remission being there. If somebody, some poor person is not coming forth, is not himself applying for the remission, he should also be considered if there is a policy, existing policy in the state, even if without applying, him applying for the same thing, if his case is eligible, he should be given the payroll, the remission, okay, not the payroll. So we'll see more on this, the factual details in the relevant news article. These are the articles in the list format. Supreme Court's big relief for convicts. States must consider the release even without the application of remission. So remission policy, every state, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, they have the remission policy to remit the sentence of a person, to remit the sentence of a convict. But some convicts, they do not come forth themselves. Now let's go one by one. What is the rarest of the rare doctrine? Two Indian murder convictions on January 22nd resulted in different sentences. One in death penalty and the other in life imprisonment. Okay, how can the outcome of two cases of similar heinous crime be given different punishment? One that of death penalty and other that of life imprisonment. Okay, this highlights the inconsistent nature, the whimsical manner in which the Supreme Court is itself applying this Supreme Court invented doctrine. The doctrine rarest of the rare crimes, the principle of awarding the death penalty in the rarest of the rare crimes is nowhere to be found in the law books. There is no definition given by the Supreme Court. All that Supreme Court has said is that this will be determined on a case by case basis. Okay, whether the crime was motivated by some selfish interest, property, etc. How many times the knife has been stabbed in the while murdering the person. Okay, rape, then murder, then committing such a crime after drinking, gang rape. These are the criteria. These are some of the points in the not so well defined criteria to determine what constitutes the rarest of the rare crime. You got the essence of the topic? Okay. So the debate on the discretion given to the judges to award the death sentence dates back to 1972, Machi Singh case. Okay. So state of Punjab. So we are going to talk about that also. In the Supreme Court upheld the when the Supreme Court upheld the constitutionality of the death penalty in Jagmohan Singh. Okay, this case is related to upholding the validity. Jagmohan Singh case upheld the validity of death penalty. The question before the Supreme Court in Jagmohan Singh case versus state of UP in 1972 was whether death penalty is legal or not. But in the Machi Singh case here, the state of Punjab in 1983, that rarest of the rare doctrine came into fashion, came into implementation, or you can say Supreme Court for the first time invoked this. What are the factors to be considered by the court? Manner of committing the murder. What is the manner? When it is extremely cruel, diabolical, okay, or shakes the conscience of the society as a whole. That means the murder is such that body has been, even though it's morning time, we should not be talking about it in detail. Body has been chopped off in pieces, or it has been dumped in the gutter, etc. Those things, reprehensible type of the murdering, will be constituted in the rarest of the rare crime. Then that person should be given death penalty. Okay. So motive for the murder, when it is cold-blooded, premeditated, already premeditation was there, a well-planned murder has been executed, okay, with selfish motives. So these are the grounds, these are the criteria. Socially heinous nature of the crime, when it involves dowry debts, murder of a person from a backward class, etc., like in RJ Kar hospital case. Okay, so that could also constitute this, but sometimes these people are let free, they are let loose. Why is it so? So rarest of the rare crime criteria seems to be a whimsical, a fanciful construct in the minds of the judges. It depends upon the mood of the society. For example, if any crime, news coverage of any crime continues for 4 to 5 days, the likelihood is very high that the person would be granted death penalty. Okay, so this is there. Magnitude of the crime, when the scale of the crime is exceptionally large, such as multiple murders, Nithari killings you can talk about. Okay, so if you have heard of these matters. Then personality of the victim. If the victim is prone to habitually committing such type of crimes, so it's better to give death penalty rather than facing the repeated saga of such crimes by the same murderer. So these are the criteria. Now here, the rarest of the rare doctrine which guides the imposition of the death penalty in India originated in the Bachchan Singh versus State of Punjab in 1980. Machi Singh case defined the criteria, the factors. Okay, so Jagmohan Singh case, number 1, 1972, which upheld the validity of death penalty as in the statute book, in the CRPC. Second, this case, Bachchan Singh case. In Bachchan Singh case, Supreme Court pronounced this criteria of rarest of the rare doctrine. In Machi Singh case, 3 years hence, 1983. So 1972, 1980, 1983. You can jot down the names of these cases. These are important because death penalty might be asked in the mains examination this year, RJ Carr, and then appearance of this particular news article also raises doubts on the criteria, okay, the way it has been applied. Bachchan Singh case, then your Jagmohan, Bachchan and Machi, right? So these are the 3 cases to memorize. The application of death penalty in India remains complex and controversial. In 2022, Supreme Court referred to a constitution bench on the question of how to provide a meaningful, real and effective hearing on mitigating circumstances. So in the other day's class, in the previous day, we had seen aggravating circumstances that would be considered by the court while awarding death penalty. Okay, I'm not quite well today. Pardon me if there is any slip of tongue. Mitigating circumstances. Since it is a daily news analysis class, we have to show up come what may, even if we have taken some medicine or tablet or anything. But so aggravating circumstances, mitigating circumstances. So what do we mean by aggravating circumstances? Circumstances which will aggravate the cause of a person being given death penalty. Okay, so these are aggravating circumstances. Circumstances that aggravate this cause. That yes, the person should be given death penalty. Okay, what are the circumstances? Gang rape, cold-blooded murder, okay, murder in a manner which is premeditated, as we have seen. Mitigating circumstances will be lone son, for example, okay, lone son of a widow lady, aged 80 plus years, octogenarian, etc. Okay, so these are the sympathetic factors which the court might take into account. Gross illiteracy of the convict. The person is grossly illiterate. Now, it is the state's fault, it is the country's fault to have not made the arrangements for the education of the person. An educated mind, if somebody like, we are coming across this case, Ranveer Allahabadia. So court said that you are well educated, right? Your schooling, everything has been well. How can you cast such remarks? Even though we are talking about death penalty, but understand, if somebody is well educated and still commits such a crime, then this becomes an aggravating circumstances. That means circumstances which aggravate the cause of death penalty being awarded. Okay, death penalty should not be awarded. These are mitigating circumstances. Got it? This is how you have to see. This is how the court has to decide whether death penalty should be given or not. When the Supreme Court has given a certain framework, the unclear, universally agreed upon definition of what qualifies the rarest of the rare, it continues to leave room for judicial discretion. Judicial discretion means the judge's own inclination. Okay, the matter would be decided. So this leads to violation of Article 14, right to equality. Isn't it the case that somebody is being given a lenient treatment while the other is given death penalty? Why life imprisonment for some and why death penalty for the others? So this is the problem here. Now coming to the second news article of the day. Remember these cases, I am reiterating once again, Jagmohan Singh case, Bachchan Singh case and Mache Singh versus State of Punjab 1983. Okay, so factors were laid down in Mache Singh case. Alright. Now, within the Gulf Cooperation Council, this is the context of this article. First appearance of the article is because we are elevating the ties with Qatar to strategic partnership. As I told you, what is the meaning of strategic partnership? We are going to see strategic partnership means that we are going to look at the issues affecting the world, be it India-Ukraine, be it Russia-Ukraine war, be it Israel-Palestine dispute, be it Donald Trump's arrival as the president of the US, his policy dictates. All these things will be looked upon as an integrated policy matter for both the countries. Both the countries will decide all these matters. While in the economic parlance, in the economic arena like FTA, etc., we just talk about tariffs, the economic side of the relationship. Any country's relationship, when you discuss about the GS mains paper 2, okay, we have to see any two countries. For example, India-Qatar relations, we have to see people-to-people ties, diaspora. This can be one plank or one contour. Okay, then you have to see economic trade. The trade that is there between the two countries in terms of oil trade, etc. Then third constituent can be investment from one country to another. Here we are having Qatari Investment Agency. They are having sovereign wealth fund which is investing in India. So this can be one point. Then these days the emerging threats, cyber security, etc. These are also discussed. Climate change. Countries talk about countries' joint take on the matter of climate change. Okay, so these are the ways in which you can cover the bilateral relations between any two countries. So this caters to your GS mains paper 2 bilateral relations. As I had promised earlier also that gradually we will cover all the countries. So this is the third, all the countries of with which India is having bilateral relations, all the regions also. So here you can take away India-Qatar, then India-Oman we have covered, India-UAE we had covered in last 1 month. Starting from January 9 onwards, these three countries have been covered. Gradually you will see, you will have a list of 25 to 30 countries that we would have covered all these days, next 365 days, plus the important international organizations like GCC. Now, how is this trade partnership, how is this elevation of ties, the India-Qatar ties to a strategic level, feeding into the larger phenomena? What is the larger phenomena? See, when India, this is the phenomena, gradually we are signing the strategic partnership level kind of an agreement with UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, and Qatar is the latest one, latest entrant. Okay, so you understand the broader picture here is that the larger picture, the larger objective is we want to sign an FTA with Gulf Cooperation Council. Please answer these questions. When was Gulf Cooperation Council set up? Where is its headquarters? Okay, and why are we signing the agreement with the Qatar? After signing the agreement with the major partners, major member countries of the bloc, GCC. Reason is Qatar was ousted from GCC in 2017. It was suspended as a member. Why? See, this map work will be handy here. This is Qatar. You need to locate Qatar. Please answer which is the Gulf which is surrounding these Gulf countries. Okay, which is the Gulf? What is the name of the Gulf here? And what is the India's presence in this region? Do we have any strategic port location over here? And second question this was. Third, does Qatar have any connecting link to India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor? Is there any port city of Qatar that is included in India, Middle East, Europe economic corridors? Corridor that is there. Okay. Now, why are we increasing our ties? Because oil dependence, Indian diaspora, right? So these things are there. Now, what happened? This Saudi Arabia is a Sunni Muslim country. Okay. It is a Sunni Muslim country, and our beloved neighboring country, Pakistan, it has been nurturing ties with these countries. Pakistan has at one point of time, through Organization of Islamic Cooperation, had offered Saudi Arabia the nuclear technology, the sharing of nuclear technology, because Saudi Arabia is fearful of Iran, which is a Shia Muslim country. Okay, so this is the dispute. Now, what happened in 2017? Qatar, otherwise a partner, a member in Gulf Cooperation Council, which is having its headquarters in Riyadh. So, Saudi Arabia led Gulf Cooperation Council, of which Qatar was a member. Qatar was developing close ties with Shia Muslim country Iran. So this whole region is a chessboard of Saudi Arabia-Iran rivalry. Okay, Saudi Arabia wants more countries to be on its side, because all the Sunni countries, if they would be on the side of Saudi Arabia, one of the largest countries, in fact the largest countries in this region, Saudi Arabia would be able to wield more power. And Iran, being a Shia Muslim country, it is nurturing Houthi rebels in Yemen. Okay, then you see what is happening in Hamas group. Again, Iran's hand is there. Then Lebanon, Hezbollah group. So these things are creating problem in this region. Now, what happened in 2017? Why would Saudi Arabia afford that a member country of GCC, Saudi Arabia-led GCC, is developing close ties with Iran? That is why Qatar was ousted out of GCC. In 2021-2022, Qatar was readmitted. After punishing Qatar, after severing all the ties with Qatar, Saudi Arabia pardoned the mistake. Saudi Arabia said, okay, no problem, now you can enter. This is the reason that of all these countries, we are signing the agreement with Qatar at a later stage, so as not to offend Saudi Arabia. If India would have developed closer ties with Qatar, signed this strategic partnership before signing it with other countries, then it would have caused some kind of suspicion, or because Qatar is not looked upon as a trustworthy country by the GCC. That is the reason. Okay, this will help you memorize this thing. UAE, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Kuwait, and then Qatar. We are signing this. IMEC is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Be regular with the news analysis. Okay, I would suggest or direct you guys to watch it in the morning itself. Otherwise, you would end up missing the newspaper reading and would lose confidence at a later stage, and then would think that, okay, I will write next attempt. This is what happens with the beginners especially. Okay, in 3 or 4 months you will be on your own. It won't take you much time to cover the news article, because the background study that we are doing every day, Saudi Arabia, Sunni Muslim country, Iran, Shia Muslim country, it takes some time to understand these things. And our endeavor through this daily news analysis class would be to help you with all these things. Now, what is the meaning of strategic partnership? So, strategic partnership, as I said, it refers to the high level discussions and negotiations between the countries, focusing upon their long-term goals and overarching interests, not just the economic interest, overarching interest. All the strings in the umbrella of relationship between two countries will be covered. Economic ties, cyber security, climate change, all these dots, all the strings of the umbrella would be taken care of. Free trade agreement, comprehensive economic partnership agreement would be elevated to free trade agreement. Then common threats to both the nations, common enemies would be identified. This is the advantage of having strategic partnership. Now see the advantage that India is gaining to rule out any possibility of China overshadowing India altogether, even though Chinese investments in Saudi Arabia are also good in number. Okay, or Saudi Arabian ties with the Chinese counterparts are very high. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to at least have a balance, so that the world is through BRI, Belt and Road Initiative of China, the world is not heavily skewed towards China. So that's our endeavor over here. Now I have asked you certain questions. Please answer those questions. In Qatar, what is the connecting dot? What is the connecting port, if any, in the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor? Does India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor have any port or any such city which is a connecting link in the overall scheme of India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor? Okay, so this is there. Now, this is what we have covered. What were the outcomes of this meeting? Expedite negotiations on India-Qatar bilateral investment treaty. Okay, so what is bilateral investment treaty? Avoidance of double taxation. What do we mean by double taxation? If any Qatari company, telecom, investment, infrastructure is based in India, it will have to pay tax only either in India or in Qatar. So double taxation should be avoided. when these type of agreements are signed between two countries, so what happens? What is the takeaway? Let me use a different color. When these type of agreements are signed, India and Qatar, so what happens? Qatari investments in India, any type of investment it is making in India, okay, will be protected. Either they will have to pay corporate tax, that company will have to pay corporate tax in either of the companies. Imagine Qatar company earning 1000 crore rupees, okay, in India. It will have to pay 22% tax in India, and then when investment will be taken back to Qatar, it will again have to pay income tax in Qatar. Then this company would be discouraged from making investments outside Qatar or making investments in India. That is why having the double taxation avoidance agreement helps the countries, helps the companies from the two countries to have faith in the investments that they are making in each other's countries. Okay, each of the countries. If Indian company makes an investment in Qatar, they will have to pay tax in India only. So to and fro movement of companies, investments of companies can be protected. Am I clear? So this is the advantage of double taxation avoidance agreement. Now what have we written here? Expedite negotiations on India-Qatar bilateral investment treaty. This treaty will further help in attracting the investments from sovereign wealth fund. What do we mean by sovereign wealth fund? Quickly we'll understand. Sovereign means government. So these countries, my dear friends, these countries are oil rich countries. In Saudi Arabia and these Gulf countries, it is said that you just dig out a small piece of sand and you will see oil in it. Instead of water, pumps in the hand pumps in these countries, they will prime water. Instead of water, they will prime water. Instead of water, oil will come out, crude oil will come out. Okay, so the problem is they have a lot of wealth coming from gold and crude oil sale. But where to invest that? Because after a certain point of time, crude oil will be extinguished. Fossil fuels are going down. So they are strategically diverting their dependence on the oil. The composition of their GDP should be such that some amount of money that they are earning from crude oil and gold should be invested in countries, high growth countries like India. India is thirsty. India is hungry for the investments. Okay. So what does India need? Just a minute. What does India need? India needs investment in its infrastructure, railway lines. The other day we talked about railway station infrastructure, airports need to be constructed, Udan scheme, infrastructure, skill training of people. So what do we need? We need investments. If you invest in India, you will get returns in India from the Indian, companies and all. So sovereign wealth fund of these countries is another area which India is interested in. If these companies would invest money, Qatar sovereign wealth fund would invest money. Sovereign wealth fund would invest money in India. They will get a good return because they are oil dependent economies. They want to reduce their dependence on oil. After a certain time, oil would be gone. So that is the reason. So having this bilateral investment treaty, kind of an arrangement between the two countries, which was decided in this meeting between PM Modi and Qatari Amir who visited India. So we will be able to attract more investments. Explore a bilateral comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Qatar's commitment to invest $10 billion. So roughly 82,000 crore rupees. Even though Qatar Investment Agency has so far invested $1.5 billion, but now they will take it to $10 billion. As I said, these countries, even though they do not have democracy, rule of law, etc., these are still the autocratic regimes, but they are very rich. And that is why India is interested in strengthening the ties with it. And gone are the days when Pakistan would be able to wean away these countries from India through another organization which is named as Organization of Islamic Cooperation, because of India's economic heft, India's economic rise. Okay, Qatar Investment Authority to open an office in India. So investment authority will see the proposals for investment from various departments of the government and various private partnership proposals, so that Qatar can tie up with, let's say, Reliance for telecom infrastructure network, etc. Okay, so nationwide rollout of UPI acceptance in Qatar. This will be of great help to Indian diaspora. Okay, So some students also, they make the payment, they struggle, they have to tell their relatives in India to make the payment. Okay, so I had one student in Odisha, she would want to make the payment, but she would have to call up her relatives and they will make the payment. So what happens is, now if UPI would be accepted, the people sitting in Qatar and other UAE countries, other Gulf countries with whomsoever we have signed this UPI arrangement, okay, they would be able to directly make the payment through their mobile phones. Their bank account in the Qatari bank will be linked with India's bank account. So APIs, active program interface, the cyber thing that we discussed about in previous days news analysis. Okay, celebrate India-Qatar year of culture, friendship and sports in the near future. Extension of e-visa. So these are people to people ties. The first diagram, the first flow chart that we saw, how can we have people to, so every time you will see some countries leaders visit, every time something will happen, you will see people to people ties, e-visa facility decision we have taken this year, and then UPI enablement. Okay, these are the decisions. This is how you are supposed to make notes for your GS mains paper 2 out of every day's news analysis. Am I clear? So this is there. You can read it. Sovereign wealth fund we have covered. There is a table, as I said, to help you understand these terms. What do we mean by strategic partnership? What do we mean by sovereign wealth fund? These tables will be quite handy when you revise from the PDF or PPT, but a humble suggestion would be to make notes out of them in your own language. So I've already told you, already Qatari investment company agency has invested, authority has invested US dollar 1.5 billion in foreign direct investment in India. Okay, then identified areas. Qatar Investment Authority has identified these areas. India and Qatar, they have identified these areas in which they would be making investment. So these are infrastructure, port, shipbuilding, etc. Now moving further, Supreme Court's big relief for convicts. If anybody is convicted and because of his conduct, because of other factors like poverty or first crime, that person is eligible for some leniency from the government of the state. Okay, so remission of, this is technically called as remitting the sentence. Governor under Article 161 is given the power to give this leniency in punishment. If somebody is given the sentence for, let's say, 10 years, but because of his good conduct, because of his first crime or these factors which are in his favor, his sentence could be reduced or altogether condoned. Altogether he could be let loose. Okay, so here what happens is, some people are not quite aware. Some convicts who are lodged in jail, they are not quite aware that these type of provisions are there for them. They are not illiterate, they don't have any relatives to bail them out. Okay, so what happens is, now the court is saying, instead of this convict applying for it, why can't you on your own give the leniency, give the relaxation called remission on your own? Okay, if you yourself give the relaxation, then it will be living up to the requirement of Article 14, right to equality. Because what happens is, ordinarily the rich people like Manu Sharma, you must have heard about the movie Jessica Lal murder case, or you talk about Aryan Khan, right? So these people who have, or you talk about Ranveer Allahabadia, he hasn't been even sent to jail, right? Talk about Sanjay Dutt, Salman Khan, they all are roaming free. They are all are free because they have been bailed out by their lawyers like Ram Jethmalani, etc. Okay, when he was alive. So what is the problem with the poor people? It is only the poor people, as per the various indices that have been published on the prison reform. They say that most of the people languishing in jail are from the economically weaker section, SC, ST, OBC. Okay, that is the composition of people languishing in jail, convicts or accused, those whose cases are pending or cases have been decided. So that is why the court is saying, even if this person is not aware of the remission policy of the state, okay, exercising this power of the governor, it is not the governor who actually grants, it is the state government. So state governments have their remission policies in place. These remission policies contain the grounds on the basis of which a person could be given some leniency in punishment. Okay, so now how to decide these cases? Whether the convict should apply himself or herself, or whether the state can on its own consider such eligible cases on Gandhi Jayanti, on 15th August, the Independence Day, Republic Day, 26th January. Okay, these days, these national occasions are the days on which many convicts are freed from the jails because of their good conduct, etc. So why can't the state on its own consider these bail applications, remission applications, without the convicts having to apply for it? Got the context of it? I hope you are understanding the context now. Now there is a section 473 of the new 473 of Bharatiya Nyay Suraksha Sanhita, or 432 of the previous act CRPC. Okay, so these are the things you need to memorize. Supreme Court ruling on the premature release and remission of the prisoners. Mandatory consideration: if a government has a policy for premature release under section 432, it must consider all eligible convicts suo motu, on its own. Okay, rather than waiting for the convicts to apply. Requiring applications would be discriminatory, because many people are not even able to write in jails, or they don't have the lawyers to advise them. They don't have relatives outside the jails to assist them in applying for remission. So in order to live up to the spirit of Article 14, right to equality, the prison authorities, the state government must itself consider the remission, even if a person is not applying. Okay, and some states have been given 2 months. Some states and union territories which haven't yet formulated their policy of releasing the prisoners on the pretext of good behavior, etc., they should formulate such policy within next 2 months. Clear? Next, Ranbir Allahabadia case we are going to discuss. Okay, you have to jot this down. In Mafa Bhai, this name is like Mafa Bhai Moti Bhai Sagar versus State of Gujarat. Supreme Court in 2024, this last part of this remission policy, order granting permanent remission. Now what happens is, sometimes a convict is released on permanent remission. A convict is released, his punishment is condoned altogether. His sentence has been altogether condoned. Maaf kar diya. In Hindi we would say. Okay, so in such cases, sometimes the state authorities, they have to cancel the remission and put him back into the jail. Why? Because when released on bail, he starts showing those criminal tendencies again, indulging in the crime again. So the Supreme Court in Mafa Bhai case said that if you are cancelling the remission, permanent remission of a sentence, a person who has been permanently absolved of all his crime, all his guilt or dirt on the linen, then if you are putting back that person back into jail, then you should give reasons. Okay, without giving reasons, if you are putting him back into the jail, you are going against the principles of natural justice. Got it? So this is the snapshot of Article 161, power of the governor. As I said, this power of the governor is to be exercised on the basis of aid and advice of Council of Ministers. Every state has to formulate a policy. Now for these things, you have to read M. Lakshmikant, refer your Article 161, have your polity book, economy book, open it, open the same page every day. Okay, I mean the page which is related to this clipping, open the page, only just one page which we are referring to. Read it in detail, and if possible, make a note on the sticky note and paste it in your M. Lakshmikant, or take A4 sheet, divide it into 2 halves and put the snapshot or put the micro notes, the gist of the thing that we have discussed in your M. Lakshmikant, so that when you are revising the static portion, you come across the contemporary portion also. Okay, the current affairs portion. This way, your ability to attempt more questions correctly in prelims would go up, because my dear friends, the questions in the prelims are such that statement A would be framed out of the static, statement 2 would be framed out of static plus current affairs. Okay, for example, the election commission issue that is going on, election commissioner's appointment. So election commissioner, statement 1 would be, for example, election commissioner is appointed by the government of India. Their election commission is a 3-member body. B, in Anup Barinwal case, election commissioners would be appointed by a select committee, a selection committee headed by Prime Minister, whose members would be LOP and CJI. Okay, as per the judgment. But are you aware of the judgment? Yes, you are aware of the judgment. But while revising that polity part, appointment of election commission, revising that election commission chapter, did you really juxtapose or did you really combine the notes that you have prepared for the current affairs with the static portion? If no is your answer, then answer you mark in the prelims would also be wrong. Okay, that is why make notes in an integrated manner. Every day I try my best to give you small piece of advice so that you can streamline your preparation. So make micro notes. You don't have to write whole Gita, whole of the story here. Just try to divide it into a flowchart format so that you are eventually talking about section 432 or 483, right? So those sections, then remission policy, then Supreme Court judgment in Mafa Bhai case. That's it. Okay, this is the advantage of following the news on a daily basis. Now, conditions for remission have been given. Remission reasons for the order. Orders granting or denying remission must include brief reasons. If you are denying somebody a leniency in punishment, you should give reasons in writing. State Home Ministry or Superintendent of Jails should give the reasons in writing as why person A has been granted remission, why Manu Sharma has been granted remission, and why others have not been. Okay, so this will be living up to the principle of accountability and hence right to equality. Now coming here, Allahabadia bail conditions, two related articles back to back so that you can get more on it. See what happens where there is a flight risk of the accused flying away from the country, like Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, okay, Lalit Modi. So these people sometimes they fly away from the country to some other country to escape from the sentence. In such cases, the Supreme Court says that you deposit your passport with the police station in which your residence comes, the jurisdictional police station. You deposit your passport or you file a bail bond of, let's say, 25 lakh rupees. Well, when Supreme Court was hearing this case, Supreme Court said that if we impose a hefty fine, let's say 25 lakh or 50 lakh rupees to be deposited, that will be like selling bail, isn't it? Any poor people will not be able to meet this criteria. So poor people will keep on languishing in jail, but a rich person would be able to walk free or get the momentary relief. So there were two matters. One of the matter was on what basis should we grant bail. The other matter was, since a lot of cases have been filed against Ranbir Allahabadia in Guwahati court, Mumbai court, okay, Mumbai police. So ultimately there is only one offense and he will get only one sentence. Because the offense is same, you cannot, under Article 20, there can be no double punishment, there can be no multiple punishments for the same crime. Okay, otherwise that will be double jeopardy. If you are aware of Article 20, nobody should be condemned twice for the same crime. So living up to that, the Supreme Court said, usually these type of applications come to the Supreme Court under Article 32, the writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court to protect an individual's fundamental rights. So under that, Ranbir Allahabadia's advocate had gone to the Supreme Court to club all the FIRs. So these FIRs are clubbed together and the case could be heard, all the cases filed against Allahabadia could be heard at one place. This is the same case in which cases were filed against the Indira Gandhi government in 9 high courts. And Supreme Court allowed under Article 142, in order to do complete justice, Supreme Court allowed clubbing up of all the FIRs and cases at one place, that is Supreme Court. Reason behind it is the accused is unnecessarily being victimized by making him go to Guwahati police, then Mumbai police, then Madhya Pradesh, Haryana. He would be at loggerheads with the legal system. Okay, so that is the problem. Point number one, on what conditions to give him bail. Even the Supreme Court discussed about him dropping a Google pin from his phone so that wherever he goes, the police can track him. Second thing is, he is barred from taking any YouTube sessions or using any social media application. Okay. In one of these cases in 2024, we have talked about Apurva case also. Okay. that in that Apurva case, what happened? The Supreme Court had said that your speech, freedom of speech that you exercise has to be seen within the realm of Indian society, Indian cultural ethos. You cannot copy paste something from Australian comedy show and present it here. You have to be sensitive to the Indian ethos. This is how the law on these obscenity has been evolving in India. Earlier it was Hicklin test. In the other day's news analysis, we had covered Hicklin test, the old era law on the basis of which these cases of obscenity and profanity would be decided in India. Now, as we are evolving as a society, we are becoming modern as a society, the case has been relaxed. Okay, that means to any normal mind of normal conscience, normal appeal, if anything appears to be arousing any physical sexual desire or putting dirt in the mind of any normal person, that would amount to obscenity and profanity. That would be covered. Earlier in the Hicklin test, old era test, the criteria was, the threshold was, if a mind which is generally aroused by these type of things, sexual talk, dirty talk, okay, obscenity, to that mind, if a person's appeal, if a person's sexual remarks or obscene remarks are appealing to an already abnormal mind, then the person would be declared as the convict, declared as the offender. But now the threshold in the cases, successive cases, has been relaxed. Okay, so this is there. Now conditions have been imposed. This all is not relevant much. I have explained you how and on what basis these things are decided. Section 438 again of CRPC stipulates. So here also section 438, and here also in the previous clipping we were talking about the same section, right? 432, right? So these are the related sections which deal with the remission policy, 432, and bail conditions by High Court, 438. So just remember these sections whenever you are writing some article. Let me give you one more section, section 436A, to grant bail to the poor people if they have already completed half their sentence and if their case is still going on. So many a times, because of delay in the judicial cases, what happens is convict is languishing in the jail and yet his case number hasn't come. I mean, tariq pe tariq is going on. So the court said, if a person who would have been awarded 2 years in jail and his case is still going on and he has completed 1 year and 1 month or more than 1 year, okay, he is already completed in jail. So he should be granted bail even if he is not able to deposit the bail money. Many poor people, like peanut seller or tea seller in the train, he pulls the railway chain and he is imprisoned for 1 year. But he is languishing in jail for 6 or more months. Had he been able to deposit 10,000 rupees, he would have been allowed to walk free. But because he is poor, unable to arrange 10,000 rupees, he will have to languish in jail unless his tariq comes. Okay, so these sections 432, 436A, 438, you should memorize for the sake of prison decongestion, bail conditions, etc. Okay, so this was all. Now coming to the other news article, past ruling in Mohammed Zubair case. So in the Mohammed Zubair case, Ranbir Allahabadia similar case, a hefty bail money was imposed on the accused so as to give him the bail. So Supreme Court said that in this case another element was whether he could be stopped from even tweeting, even putting a post on Twitter. Okay, Supreme Court in that case said that this Mohammed Zubair case, if we impose such kind of a gag order, censorship order on any such person, we are crippling, we are in a way taking away his freedom of speech and expression. So in Zubair case, this lenient treatment was given that the person was even allowed to go on the social media. Okay, but Ranbir Allahabadia's case, even though the lawyer Mr. Chandrachud cited this case, Mohammed Zubair case, to get some leniency for Ranbir Allahabadia to conduct his live shows, but the Supreme Court said no, we are not going to allow him. Okay, so Mohammed Zubair case, you can jot it down, you can note it down in your notes. Moving further, another interesting article related to employment, GS Mains Paper 3, how after 1991 LPG reforms, the composition of employments is shifting from public sector to private sector. This article says that post 1991 reforms, majority of the employees were working in the government sector. Okay, 60 lakh odd employees in the government sector, central government employees were there. But after the LPG reforms, a middle class 1.0, a version of middle class was created. That version was said middle class 1.0, which means the first version of middle class that India had. What is middle class? Technically, that class which has some discretionary spending, okay, to spend on items that they want to buy, above the items, over and above the items that they need to buy in order to survive. Good clothes, Apple mobile phones, okay. The aspirational middle class. The first wave of middle class in India was created after 1991 reforms. Now the second wave of middle class has been created by the private sector. This is the gist of the editorial. There are some questions that have been asked in 2020 as to whether the rural consumption is increasing or rural employment is increasing more than urban employment. Those type of questions you need to be watchful for while reading these type of news articles. How a question can be framed out of these type of clippings, I'm just going to demonstrate in next 2-3 minutes. So see, official employment data and public and private sector, for the public and private sector, has not been released since 2012. Even the economic survey last carried the data for on employment composition as to how many employees are from public sector and private sector. That data was last time released in 2012, be it in economic survey or in the government labor periodic labor force survey, etc. Ever since, that data has not been released. Why? We have no answer to it. Anyway, let's proceed to the context of this news. So this news says that middle class 2.0, that segment of India's middle class, has been growing significantly ever since the liberalization. So you have a look at this chart. The public sector, now what the writer has done is, in the light of the official data, in the light of the lack of official data, the writer has collated the data from top 5 service sector companies: Infosys, TCS, Wipro, etc. Then the writer has compiled and collated the data from the public sector banks employees and private sector bank employees, so as to help us with the comparison how the big IT companies are the dominant employers. March 2022, TCS, for example, had 4,50,000 odd employees. In September 2022, this number grew to 6,16,000. In December 2024, this number came down to 6,07,000. Okay, so the crux of this story is public sector employment is going down, private sector employment, that too in the service sector, is going up. This is the takeaway, right? Here, employees in the scheduled commercial banks, public sector employees in 1992 was 8,50,000. Private sector in 1991 just had HDFC, ICICI, etc. They just had 63,000 employees. See, 8,50,000, 63. Now come to this straight away, 23-24. Public sector banks have 7,50,000 employees. Private sector banks have 8,75,000 employees. Roughly, I'm saying. Okay. So what does it tell you? That the employment in public sector banks, SBI, PNB, Oriental Bank, etc., has gone down. And the employment in private sector banks has increased by quantum jumps over the years. So what is the writer trying to tell us? That banking sector, TCS, these are service companies. Writer, the crux of this article is, even though the composition of employees from public sector to private sector is increasing, the shift of employment, so middle class 2.0 that is being created by the private sector. Middle class people earn 1 lakh, 1,50,000 per month. They spend on desirable items, not only the needful items like salt, tea, etc., bread, butter and sugar. No, they are spending on pizzas, etc., which is what is increasing the growth of the country, right? Consumption-led growth model. Now, what is the problem here? The problem here is this service sector jobs that they are in, it requires more education, or otherwise these people will end up being as employees of lower middle class or EWS. As you see the career ladder here, I have incorporated. Earlier people were able to climb up the ladder, okay, career progression. Now this career progression is not happening. Why? They end up being gig economy workers. What are gig economy workers? Even though they are in service sector, but service sector employment is in the low category jobs. Delivering pizza, service, okay, working as a cleaning boy, working in IRCTC as somebody who takes care of the cleanliness in railway coaches, serving food. So this is the problem, that jobs that are being created are not being created in the manufacturing sector. Jobs are being created in the service sector. And these service sector jobs, on one hand, they require high category of skills, education, spoken English. If you want to work in a call center, decent job it is, better than the Zomato and Swiggy worker, Amazon delivery boy, better. But that BPO job would require you to speak fluent English. Service sector jobs, otherwise you would end up being Uber, Ola drivers, etc., with lack of formal security. Formalization is not happening in the service sector. These jobs are mostly contractual jobs, temporary jobs with no social security. All right. Yes, 1 lakh per month is still considered to be a middle class. Okay, so you understand the takeaways from this article. Employment challenge. India's main challenge is the lack of structural transformation. We have transitioned from agricultural economy to non-agricultural economy. But non-agricultural economy transition is not coming from the manufacturing, more of the manufacturing jobs. Manufacturing's composition or share to the GDP is just 17%. It should have been at least 25%. So that is why these agricultural landless laborers, they migrate to urban towns. Either they are plying e-rickshaws, service sector, transport, or they are working as Zomato, Swiggy drivers, pliers, motorbikes, etc., or they are acting as Uber, Ola drivers. Okay, informal and low paying jobs these are. This brings us to the end of the news analysis today. Let me show you the question here. How a question can be framed out of this. See, with reference to the Indian economy after 1991 economic liberalization, consider the following statements. Statement 1, worker productivity as per the 2004-5 prices increased in urban areas while it decreased in the rural areas. So anybody who has read the concept of disguised unemployment in agriculture will be able to correlate this. Second, the percentage share of rural areas in the workforce steadily increased. Third, in rural areas, the growth in the non-farm economy increased. Fourth, the growth rate in rural employment has decreased. In rural areas, the growth rate in non-farm economy has increased in rural areas. How can we say that? We can say that only if we are reading these type of articles. We are deducing what is relevant for our purpose. We are making notes out of the text that is there in green or yellow color. Okay, so career ladder, etc., you understand. People are plateaued here, their career stops here. They can just be made rise, they can just rise up to the level of supervisor of 100 Uber drivers, supervisor in a shopping mall. That's it. Right? So this is the problem with India's middle class 2.0. Are these type of questions being asked in mains? Yes, these type of questions are being asked. I'll give you a remotely related question. Examine the impact of work from home on the family life. Okay, so you can expect these type of questions. What do you mean by middle class 2.0? Do you think that middle class 2.0 is private sector led, but it is more of the service sector led informal jobs? You should be knowing the answer. Okay, now leaving you with some map questions. Qatar, answer the Qatar oriented, the related question. Is there any connecting port, seaport of Qatar in India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor? Which is the port in Israel, which is connected, which is a part of India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor? We have two ports in Iran. Okay, under the India International North-South Transport Corridor, which runs from Mumbai or Mumbai to or Kandla to Russia, St. Petersburg. So what is the name of the other port? Okay, so answer these questions and arrange the cities in the Gulf countries and the capital cities of the Gulf countries in the descending order. You got my question? Arrange the capital cities of UAE, Saudi Arabia, this Kuwait. Arrange in the descending order. Answer these questions. Why? Because whenever we are increasingly signing such type of agreements with any particular region, what happens is UPSC is asked a question around it. When our Prime Minister visits Central Asia, they will ask you to arrange the countries in the descending order. When we are increasing our exposure to ASEAN, Same Indonesia, Malaysia, their countries were asked to arrange their capital cities in the descending order. So this is my question to you. Please answer these type of questions. Okay. Okay, fine. If all of you would answer, that will make a community. You can see and check back each other's answers, and that will help you, be a little active, not just a passive listener of this news analysis. You should be active listener. Now, that's it. Thank you guys. This was all in today's news analysis. We'll meet you again in the next class tomorrow at around 8 a.m. If you are finding some problem in getting the PDF of this news analysis, the link of the Telegram channel is there in the description box below. You can visit the Telegram channel and download the PDF in a short while from now. With this, I take your leave. Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a great day, guys. Thank you.